Hello guys, welcome back to the channel for a new Databricks video. Today's video would be about Azure DevOps and Databricks Asset Bundles. I know we've done similar videos in the past about Databricks Asset Bundles, some easier, some more difficult. In today's video I will provide you a simple yet very efficient and complete template so that you can deploy parameterized workflows to different Databricks environments easily. Apparently, there are many ways to structure your Databricks Asset Bundle project. However, I do believe this is a very simple and neat way to do it. Our DevOps guys at work have done an amazing job when it comes to Databricks Asset Bundles, and this is the simplified version of it. But enough talking, let's dive into the code. Okay guys, so before we see the DevOps code, I recommend you take a look on the documentation about Databricks Asset Bundles, and more specifically, take a look on the section where it says create the bundle manually. They provide step-by-step tutorial on how to create and set up your Databricks Asset Bundle project. You have to authenticate first, then install Databricks CLI, and then how to create your first bundle manually and how to structure your project. As you can see, they use Poetry for dependencies, and then they provide Python code, etc., and how you create the configuration file, which is the Databricks YAML file, which is the main file. As you can see, it contains the bundle name. You have to define the bundle name here, the artifacts, the Python wheel that you are going to build using Poetry, the resources, the jobs, the targets, etc. So many things here. Okay, so let's see our project now. First, let me show you Databricks YAML file. So here we have Databricks YAML file. We specify the bundle name, which is template. We include from the folder templates, we include all the YAML files. Now the templates folder is here, and we have a YAML file which is called bundle.yaml. You can give whatever name you want here. And then we have to specify the variables that we want to pass to our workflow jobs. So if you haven't specified the variables here and you have only specified them in the DevOps pipelines, then it will give you an error. So here we define two variables, the environment, which is the default is dev, and then the schema, which is the default is test. So in the code, we are going to pass the parameters of the environment, so dev for the development environment and prod for prod, and then we are going to create schemas if they don't exist in the Hive metastore. That is what the code does. So here in the Databricks YAML, we have to specify the variables that we are going to use. Now the default value, it doesn't matter, just provide the default value. The value will change later on the DevOps pipelines. It will be overwritten in the DevOps pipelines, but here you have to define the variables. Then you define the root path. You can provide another root path if you want. We need the targets. Here we have dev and prod, and then here Poetry build, and then for passing the wheel package to workspace we use sync include, and here dist slash the wheel files. Here in the PyProject file we specify the dependencies, right? And when when we run the Poetry build command, it will install the dependency that we have specified here in the PyProject file. And inside packages, then from source, so here under the source folder, here is what I would say, this is where we create our library or the code that is going to be reused multiple times, right? So here we have a library here. As you can see, we have the lib folder, and here in the code example, inside this Python script, we have a function called create_schema. We pass the environment and the schema, and then we return a string, but also we pass the parameters here, right? So create schema, if not exists, have metastore, which is the catalog, the default catalog, and then the schema would be the environment_schema. So in dev it would be dev_test. So we are going to create a schema with the name dev_test, and in prod we are going to create another schema called prod_test. So in each environment we have the equivalent schema based on the environment. We parameterize the pipelines, and this is very, very useful, right? Parameterize your pipelines and pass the environment variable, because this is then how you define the code in which environment you are, and get the right data that you want per environment. So here inside this source folder that we built our library, here we specify in the PyProject file, in the packages, we say from the source folder here, we include the lib folder, which contains this code_example py function, Python code, and yeah, this is what we are going to use on the notebooks. So on the notebooks now, we have under notebooks, we have our Databricks notebook, right? So here we pass two parameters, as we said, environment name and the schema, right? So that's why we use db utils.widgets.text, and we are going to get the parameters from the job parameters from the pipeline, and then pass those parameters to this create schema function that we defined here. Now, how can we import this create schema function? From lib.libcode.codeexample import the create schema function. So pretty simple, right? This is pretty simple code, but this is how you can parameterize your pipelines based on the environment. And then we have the Azure DevOps pipelines, and here is the key part. Now here in our dev YAML, so this YAML is for the DevOps pipeline for development, for the dev environment apparently, and we have one more YAML for the prod environment. So for the dev environment, as you can see here, we have the parameters. We have a parameter called action that the default is deploy, to deploy the bundle, and there is another parameter here which is destroy, so it will destroy the bundle when we deploy this DevOps pipeline. This is useful as well, this destroys function as well. Then we pass the environment name. The default is dev, because this YAML will be used for the dev pipeline. So here, as you can see, this default value here overrides the default value that we have specified under variables in the Databricks.yaml. Of course, now it's going to be the same, but in prod, here in prod, as you can see, we specify prod as environment name, and this will override the default value here. So we specify the schema as well, test, right? And in variables, we specify the service connection that we need in order to connect from Azure DevOps to our Azure components like Key Vault and Databricks, and then we specify the Key Vault name that we store the secrets. Now, which secrets are you asking? The Databricks URL and the Databricks token. First of all, here we specify this service connection name. If we go here under project settings, I have created a service connection. Here you can create a new service connection based on Azure Resource Manager. Click on next, You can use app registration, the automatic one, right, or the manual one, or whatever managed identity, whatever. And of course, after that, you have to go into your key vault, and in the access policies, you have to specify your service principal to have secret permissions, right? And it would be the same service principal that you defined in your service connections here. And then we want the agent pools, so click add pool, existing one, select Azure pipelines like I have, or another agent, and then it's time to create our first pipeline to deploy to the dev environment. So let's do that. Select your project, existing YAML files here for dev, continue, right? Click on run, and here is our dev Databricks. As you can see here, dev_Databricks. We don't have any workflows here. After we run this pipeline, we are going to deploy the bundle and have our code and our workflow. The first step is to validate the bundle, right? Install Poetry, install Databricks CLI, then validate bundle. So let's wait for it to finish. It will take a couple of minutes. Okay, here we are now. The next step is to deploy the bundle. As you can see here, it got stuck because we have to permit to deploy. So let's wait for it to finish to deploy our workflow. One more thing about the workflow. So here we have under templates, we have the bundle.yaml, and here is how you can create a workflow. So jobs, example pipeline, then here we pass in the variable, we have already passed from the DevOps pipeline. So let me scroll down here in the Azure DevOps pipeline. As you can see here, the first step is to deploy the bundle. So we connect to Azure Key Vault, then we install Poetry, all the commands here that we have, and then Databricks bundle validate. This is the key part, right? -t, and then here parameters.env, which are the parameters that we have specified here, right? In which environment, and then --var variable, right? And then we pass the parameters again that we have specified up here. So, and then we have from the key vault, we get the Databricks host parameters, we pass the environment, -URL and -token. Okay, so first of all, here as you can see, --var, this is the variable, this is a way to pass the variables to the Databricks, to the bundle, actually to the job, right? And this is how you pass here, that's var.env name, which is the one we passed here, right? We passed here. And this is how we can pass the parameters to the job as well. Then we specify the tasks. The task points to this notebook here, schema_creation, and then we specify the job cluster key. We define the job cluster, and we pass the parameters that we want to pass as job parameters. So in the parameters we pass schema and the value that we passed from the Azure pipelines and the environment as well. Okay, so this is one job that we point to a simple Python notebook, and also install the library that we have built here with Poetry under source, the code that we specified here under source, and this would be inside our library, right? So this is how you can create a simple job, install the Python wheel and pass job parameters here, which is pretty simple, right? This is everything we need. Then we have this part here that we get the Databricks host and the Databricks token, which is saved in our key vault. And here, if we go into our key vault, I have stored 4 secrets: Databricks dev URL, Databricks dev token, and Databricks prod token, Databricks prod URL. Now, if you want to get a token, so here, click on settings, click on developer, access token, click on manage, generate new token, right? So let's go back, and I think we have covered pretty much everything except for the next stage, which is deploy. Remember, we have 2 stages, one which is the build stage, and it validates the Databricks bundle here, and the one that deploys or destroys the Databricks bundle. Now, if the parameter is destroy, then we destroy the bundle. If it's deploy, then we pass. We do exactly the same thing as before, but here the only thing that changes is the Databricks bundle, and then deploy minus T, and then we pass the parameters. Exactly the same thing. The Databricks bundle command just changes very slightly based on the parameters that we passed, whether it's deploy or destroy, right? And now if we go back to our pipelines, as you can see, this pipeline has 2 stages, the build one and the deploy one. Here it finished successfully. Now if we go here, you will see this workflow, this job here. You can see the task. This task points to this notebook here, and as job parameter, let's see the job parameters here. We have the environment and the schema, right? Now let's do exactly the same. Let's go back into pipelines and deploy to prod. So create a new pipeline, click point to the prod YAML file, and then click on continue, run it, and on our production Databricks, as you can see now we are in prod Databricks environment. There are no workflows, but this is what we're going to deploy now. First, validate the Databricks Asset Bundle and then deploy it to production. Okay, so now we finished deploying to production. Let's go to our workspace, and here is our prod pipeline. Again, we pass the job parameters that we want, prod and schema test, right? And here we have the job cluster as well that we defined, and the scheduler, etc., etc. So now it's time to run our pipelines and see the code running. Okay, so in our dev environment now, if we go into this workflow, as you can see, if you're going to make any changes, now you cannot make any changes here. You cannot edit the scheduler or the cluster or the parameters. If you're going to do that, first you have to disconnect from source, disconnect from Databricks Asset Bundle. And what it says here is that if you want to reconnect to the deployment source, you have to redeploy, right? But for now, I'm going to swap my compute cluster, my job compute cluster, to a simple existing cluster that is already up and running. And let's run this pipeline now. Let's run this pipeline and see what we get. Give it a second to run the notebook with these job parameters that we passed here. Our notebook just ran, and as you can see from the widgets, we get the job parameters and we pass it in the function that we import from our library that we built with Poetry, this Python wheel, and pass it here and then create the schema if it doesn't exist. Now, if we go into our catalog, we will be able to see under Hive Metastore the schema, which is dev_test, right? You can see the schema here. The same if we run the production pipeline, it will create the equivalent schema in prod. And this is how you can parameterize your pipelines according to each environment. Now, this is it, guys. Here is all the code. This is the template. It's a pretty simple template, as you can see, very easy to understand. I think it's better structured than the one on the tutorial here. You can build more complex things based on this structure here. Again, there are many ways to structure your Databricks Asset Bundle project. This is one way. I think our DevOps guys have done an amazing job. That's why I wanted to share this with you. And this is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something new. I'm going to upload the code on GitHub so you can play around and use this template on the future. If you like the video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.